Welcome back once again to the Imaginary Gallery. This is TJ, your host. We are back in the gay world of narcissism. I'm responding this evening to a viewer's question. Eric B., this is your question. Wondering if you could talk about sexual role, which would be top versus bottom, and if you think it plays a part in narcissism. Tops could arguably be, in general, more dominant, controlling, aggressive. There's also this obsession about their penis. Bottoms tend to be the inverse of that. Also, a good topic may be how sex with a narcissist makes someone feel. I know I felt worthless, unlovable, used. I felt angry for being controlled and treated like an object. I even felt jealous that I wasn't able to do the same to him. We'll begin with the first part of the question regarding the top versus bottom in relation to narcissism. In my experience, I've never really been a label type person, and I think that if you're a man and you have the capability to be either or, top or bottom, I think when people label themselves, it's pretty much just a way of saying, hey, I prefer this over that. The situation I've come across with these narcissistic monster creatures is each role is interchangeable, and those who are very strict and limiting and give themselves a label that says that they are strictly this, I just never really related to that, because I figured it's like if you're an outlet and you've got AC and you've got DC current both, it's like some of the outlets are running around saying, hi, I'm an AC, and then the others are running around saying, oh, I'm a DC, and I'd be thinking, you've got both parts there, but I probably don't represent the majority of people out there, but that's just the way I've looked at it. Plus, you have to take into consideration the type of creature we're dealing with. Remember, at least in my experience, when I've met people with this cluster B disorder, they're very rarely claiming to be any kind of specific thing only, especially in the beginning, because remember, they're mirroring. If, for example, let's just say a narcissist who considers himself a top meets someone who's got the characteristics that would be easily exploitable, and the other person says they're a top, well, the narcissistic personality monster will probably adjust and say, oh, really? I'm a bottom. So you can't ever really tell when you're dealing with these types, because more than likely they have experience in all of the realms. I'll bring up some other details regarding this in a moment as well, because it's not an easy question to answer. But yes, we could think about the top as being the stereotypical person who is in control and wants you to do what it wants you to do. And you could think of the bottom as the submissive one. But I've learned that's not necessarily always the case in real life. Sure, in the bedroom, maybe, but it doesn't always translate out into real life, especially if you're dealing with a cluster B monster, because for all you know, the bottom you've been servicing for the last 6 months really considers itself to be a top, but that is kept compartmentalized away from any interactions you have with them. And that's what makes this sick, or sicker, because you really don't know what you're dealing with. I think the main part of the gayness that contributes to the narcissistic traits would be simply related to the fact that many gays, at least from the older days, have plenty of experience growing up with secrets, with deception, with covering up facts. They become experts, like growing up through their childhood, so by the time they enter the dating world, well, they're like a pro. So they meet new people, and they employ the same techniques. And what I'll do now is I'll reference a response that I read on a website discussing this type of dilemma I'm discussing. This comes from an article I found in the Data Lounge. Someone sent a question in that said, "Why are gay men so self-centered, selfish, and narcissists?" This one particular viewer answer struck my attention, which kind of ties in here to this. It is. The real answer is where this thread started. Growing up in the closet perverts us, stunts our maturity, in essence makes us more narcissistic. We have to be to survive. Then, once we find the gay bars and the gay subculture, it's all about superficial looks and all the stuff we need to do to compete and get laid, which, while fun and feels good, does nothing for our psychological well-being or our ability to form adult relationships. Traditionally, gays eat their own. If you buy into the gay culture, you are encouraged to be vapid, self-serving, cruel, shallow, and superficial. When I came out in the early 90s, I remember having it shoved in my face that I needed to have the perfect home, perfect job, perfect car, perfect abs, perfect hair, perfect tan. I had to listen to the coolest, newest music and make all the cultural references to things edgy and hip. I had to have money and always be competing with others. Gym bunnies were all around. The men I dated were mostly messed up back then, always looking over their shoulder for the next hottest thing. Their roulette wheel never stopped on me for very long. No one ever nurtured my self-esteem. I didn't like most of the queer guys I knew back then, and still I struggle to find adult, mature, and nice gay men today. I hate to say it, but most of the gay men I meet are kind of messed up in some pretty obvious ways. We are damaged goods. Not victims, mind you, but damaged from the fucking number society has done on us for decades. I find very few gay men with genuine self-esteem. Gay men are really not taught about self-love, maturity, empathy, kindness, and how to be in loving relationships with friends or romantic partners. When thrown together, it's the blind leading the blind. This is why you must choose your gay friends carefully. So the reason I referenced that article is because I think it touches more upon what the real issue is here. When it comes down to self-labeling of,
"Oh, hi, nice to meet you, I'm a top,"
versus,
"Hi, nice to meet you, I'm a bottom."
as if the top is saying,
"I'm going to control you," and
the bottom is saying,
"I want to be controlled by you."
with this type of situation, it can be interchangeable. And here's where I've come up with that from. I'm just thinking back to my own history. Way, way, way back when I was like right about 21, I was involved with a cluster B creature, which I didn't know then, but I know now, who was concerned. He had claimed, his doctor said he was HIV positive. I was a 20-something-year-old, I think about 20-year-old kid, and I was worried about that. Plus, it was a whore. And of course, I didn't know how all that stuff worked then. Very naive, just thought, oh, the person's pretty, looks the way I like it, we'll make this work. And of course, that's not the way it works. This person evidently considered itself to be a top. During discussions regarding the possibility of infection, figured, well, things would probably be better off if my parts were the ones going externally versus internally, so I assumed the role of the top. And then recall at a social gathering at a later time, this creature saying,
"I used to be a top, but He turned me into a bottom.
Which, again, even then I was never thinking about things in terms of labels, but I guess some people really do. Just like some people really think they're a Democrat or they're a Republican, even though many of us know they're all part of the same thing. Divide and conquer. Seems kind of similar here with the different parts. The fact is, we have the equipment to do either or, and I would just call the label a preference, but not any all-inclusive criteria that forbids specific things. Another example, I was involved with the long-term 11-year creature, and never once did we even have any discussion over a label for who's what. And are you this, are you that? And it's like nothing. After discard, after it was over, I saw the person out in public. It was very strange because I would see some of the friends this person would hang out with, and I'd say stuff like, hey, is that your new partner now? And I would get comments in return such as,
Oh no, that would never work. He's the top.
and I was like shocked, thinking, okay, that stuff never came up before. But evidently the message was, oh no, he's not my new partner because he's a top and I'm a top, so that would never work. And I thought, oh, what's this that's going on? Possibly I've been left in the dark because of my own views versus their views, but I don't know. Maybe I'm the retarded one. But anyway, regarding this topic, I wouldn't necessarily say that the particular role chosen would really be a deciding factor involved here, because keep in mind, what are we dealing with? We're dealing with the pretender, the one who wears the mask, which means if the predator is after a rich, recently divorced target, and that recently divorced target happens to be a top, so to speak, and so is the predator, guess what? That predator is going to say,
Oh, I love to bottom.
because they want their goal. So the preference, I've learned, doesn't really matter, because typically with these people, they've got their list of backups. They've got their other supply off to the side. So like if the queer narcissist dates a guy who says, oh, I don't perform oral sex, but this guy who says it has the fortune or whatever the narcissist wants, well, the narcissist will be like, oh, well, that's okay. I'll just do without that then. Common sense will tell you, no, he won't. He will simply get that from them. But because these people are compartmentalizing everything, they will simply act as if that's a normal thing, like, oh, all my life I love to do this certain thing, but oh, because you don't like it, oh, well, I don't care now. I'm fine without it. It's just not realistic. And that is unfortunately one of the bad things you have to deal with when you finally recognize that you're dealing with a cluster B type personality, is that you'll never really know who they are. You could be someone considering yourself top with this bottom lover who daily fantasizes about being the top. The problem is the compartmentalization. Again, you are selected for a specific role, so that is what you'll see in the creature directed towards you, which has nothing to do with its typical desires, but because you are there for your home and your pool and your income and your car or whatever, it's just not going to come up. And that is a fictitious, superficial relationship where you're really not connecting with anyone. In my case, when I was just like a teen, would think, okay, if I find a partner in the future, I'd want a partner who could share the ideas I have and share its own ideas, and we could exchange it and grow and think together. Doesn't happen with these types. They mirror you perfectly at first. Of course, later you see through it. So you really can't go by the label they give themselves, whether it's top versus bottom, because that's just a minor factor involved if there are other things that it's after that the target has. Plus, remember, they've got their backup supply. Eric B. mentioned as well, tops seem to be obsessed with their cocks, and that bottoms seem to be inverse. Now this, again, is relying upon labels, which I realize some do live their lives with strict labels and guidelines. I have noticed, like, the tops. Well, actually, I've noticed both tops and bottoms are all obsessed with cocks, whether it's the size, the shape, or whatever. But I've also noticed bottoms that are, like, specifically looking for the biggest, thickest rod to be shoved inside them. At least, personally, I think it's probably because their hole's so loose, they need something gigantic to fill it, because otherwise, whatever goes in it will just fall inside because there's so much space. But I don't know. So I don't really relate to that as far as experience I've had with other people. As far as, ooh, those tops, they're always concerned about their clock. Oh, the bottoms are always not concerned about it. Because I've seen a mixture of all of it. But again, a stereotypical sense, if the top is aggressive and also obsessed with his size, well, that would go together. And then the bottom may not care. Maybe he's not as hung, but then again, sometimes they're more hung than the tops. It's really hard to define anything in terms of labels as far as my experience goes. Now, regarding the last part of this question would be how having sex with a narcissist makes someone feel. This viewer felt worthless, unlovable, used, and angry for being controlled and treated like an object, and even being jealous that he wasn't able to do the same to him. My response to this would be, first off, it depends. Sex with a narcissist at first, when you don't know that's what it is, usually could be great. You form comfort zones, and it's a wonderful thing. I think you're referring to what happens when you realize what you're dealing with, and then it's a different story. Many times with these types, they're going to put on that mask, which says, oh, I don't spend time with anyone else like this, and it's, of course, a lie. To hear that brainwashing that there's nobody else but you can be intoxicating to think, wow, really? I'm attracted to several different people, but you're not? Oh my, maybe I should be more like you. Well, it's a fake act. When you eventually learn that this other person has countless other partners besides you, sounds like where you're coming from, you feel worthless, unlovable, used, and so on, because you realize that maybe in your experience, if you're going to take the effort to be nude and up close and personal with a person, it means something special to you, but you're realizing that this creature that you're with is seeing you as just an interchangeable object that it could perfectly be fine with a different one if you're not there. And it's just kind of hard to think of yourself in that way. But what I've done over the years, especially after dealing with so many, I've actually devolved and realized that, you know what, if you're dealing with that type, you've got to adjust your intelligence level, or I called it something else, but you have to adjust your level to match up with theirs, which means you don't expect any of your childhood fantasies of finding this great person. You just see things for what they are and think, you know what, if we're going to do these things, well, we're going to do these things, but we don't hold on to any type of fantasy of this perfect thing that's just going to happen. We're going to find this person who magically, until they met us, only wants us and no one else, and it just doesn't really work that way. And of course, the narcissistic monsters will insist, if you're the target, oh yes, I'm not interested in anyone but you, and of course they always are, which is always difficult. But yes, if you are seeing this person and you know what they are, and they're with you, it kind of dilutes the feeling of thinking that a person's with you because they really want to be with you or they find something important in you. It's just, oh, they must not have had anybody else for this time slot, so I'm the one there. And of course, they won't usually act that way. It's like they have a button they press inside that switches on the lover. So whether it's with you or with the other, whoever, it's going to be geared to look like it's directed to the target, but your brain usually is realizing that, you know what, if I wasn't here and someone else was, he'd be doing the same thing to this other. And it's just sickening because we want to think that someone would think we're a special person versus just one of several choices. But unfortunately, with these types of people, that's what the case is. You a lot of times have to reprogram your own programming to think, okay, this isn't the typical romance I envisioned, but what it is this, so, okay, well, I'll be this. It doesn't always work. In fact, it can be very difficult. It's kind of like a requirement. Otherwise, you just do without, which can be an option as well. But it's really nasty dealing with these creatures because you've grown up with your views and your beliefs and what you've wanted, and then you see this that pretends to share those, and then it doesn't, and then you have to decide, and of course, usually by then you're so far in, you wouldn't just want to turn away from it, but sometimes turning away from it is the only thing to do. One other final piece I'll throw in here that relates, just a reminder of how toxic these types of people are, because we all know how we are in everyday life if we're not faking who we are. A typical situation that can happen, let's say you do find a person you're really physically attracted to, and the other person seems to feel the same way, but you try to put things in a realistic perspective. What typically happens with these cluster B types is you'll think of it as, oh, wow, you're hot. You think I'm hot? Great, we could have some fun. And if you've recently been out of a serious long-term thing, you may be geared towards, look, I just want to have fun. And they're like, oh, so do I. So you're thinking it's safe. Problem is, they many times decide that you're the one they want to target, so they change their story. So if you're going through this kind of a phase, the difficulty you'll find yourself faced with is these creatures will throw off your plan by acting like they're in love with you and you only. And what typically happens is you may feel uncomfortable with this, thinking that you've made it clear how you feel, and they're, of course, arguing their side with, well, I didn't intend to fall in love with you, I just did, as if that means it's up to you then to alter your position to fulfill their needs. But regardless, that does happen. Problem with all this is you are like reluctantly going along sometimes with all this, only to find out months later that this person was a whore the whole time, and you think the only reason this person was saying all this romantic love crap was to control me. They wanted to keep me from looking elsewhere, and it's just sickening. But that's one of their dirty tricks they love to play, where they're chasing the whole field behind your back, but pretending like you're the only one in their eye, and then you're thinking, well, I do like the field too, but oh, I guess maybe I could try the, and it's fake. Get out now if you're involved with one. It only gets worse!
Oh. Oh. I am the narcopath, as you know, and I've got a bone to pick with you. I am so sick of all of you previous exes of mine trying to blame me for your erratic behavior. What I've been hearing is you all think that because I did this or I did that from the beginning of the relationship, that gives you the right somehow to be cruel to me. For example, when I happened to already have been married and told you I was single and widowed and cried for you and you bought it, that shouldn't matter. I was perfect to you. I've cooked all of your meals. I did everything for you. So who cares if I was secretly still married? And you think that after you, of course, violated my privacy by going online and doing a background check on me, that exists. You need help with that. But when you found out I was married, that's no reason for you to treat me the way you did. We all have to get along in this world. Who cares if I swore I was devoted to you and you only? That's something you can get over. Who cares that man I was married to? That was none of your business, and you did not even need to know, and goddamn you for even looking that up on the website, you nosy stalker. When you slapped me across the face and told me I deserved it, well, that was the last straw. I had to go to your family, to your friends and tell them how unstable and violent you are. So don't blame me if they lock you up. Still, you think you're justified in your slapping just because I misrepresented myself? Well, honey, you live in a different world than I do. I'm perfectly fine pretending to be someone else. Besides, if you knew the real me, well, we wouldn't have even gone as far as we did because I am rotten to the core. But that doesn't give you any excuse to treat me the way you did after you found out that I scammed you and almost ruined your life and destroyed your family.
I am the narcopath. I know you probably didn't expect to see me.
Oh my God. I've been passed out for a few days on my pain meds, and I decided to try to catch up on the latest Pizzagate scandal so I can find out when the coast is clear for me and my kill room adventures. And I was looking through YouTube, and I found the most disgusting creature I've ever seen. His name is David Seaman, Hey, friend. and he is full of cum. David Seaman. He is disgusting. I'm glad He's you got joined me greasy tonight. hair. He is an attention whore. He wrote a book trying to sell himself, and he tells people in interviews that he would protest gravity if he thought it might give him a buzz. I tried to watch one of his videos, and quite frankly, I vomited within the first 5 minutes. He's promoting these Bitcoin crap stuff, and he's a Zionist Jew, pretending like he doesn't even know what that is. Oh, if you see him, delete him. He is retarded.
He is retarded.
Gosh, there was the E.
Gosh, there was the E.